The first time I knew he was leaving, he was still holding my hand. It was in the back of a rideshare, city lights sliding over the window like water, and his thumb kept making that familiar, absent little circle on my knuckle. The same gesture he used when he was happy, the same one he used when he was scared. But that night it felt practiced, like his body remembered me even when his mind was already somewhere else.
Some exits don't announce themselves. They arrive as small efficiencies, less eye contact because it takes effort, fewer questions because answers create obligations. People call it distance, like it's a place you can point to, but it's not a place. It's a decision repeated quietly until it becomes a habit.
In the beginning, it was simple in a way I still miss. Not perfect, just honest. He didn't have that polished charm some people wear. He had a softness that showed up in details, like how he'd move things off the passenger seat before I got in, without me asking. Like how he noticed I never finished my coffee and started ordering a smaller size, saying they always overfill it anyway. The first night I stayed over, his apartment smelled like laundry that had dried a little too long. Warm cotton and leftover detergent. He kept apologizing for nothing. The floor lamp in the corner had a yellow bulb that made everything look kinder than it was. I remember sitting on his couch, gray, slightly lumpy, the kind you sink into, and he put a blanket over my legs like it was automatic. He asked me questions that weren't dramatic, just steady. So, what's your morning like? What do you do when you can't sleep? And when I answered, he didn't rush to fill the space. He let my words land, like they mattered enough to sit with.
Early love can feel like relief, not because the person is extraordinary, but because they make your inner life feel legible. When someone listens without interrupting, your nervous system interprets it as safety. It's not fireworks, it's oxygen.
We built a life out of small, repeating things. Tuesday groceries, a shared notes app where we kept a running list of movies we'd definitely watch. We never did, not really. The list was more romantic than the watching. He'd send me photos of ordinary things like a weird cloud or a sign with a typo. No caption, just the image. Like he was saying, I'm here. I'm looking at the world and thinking of you. And I'd answer with something equally small so he'd know I received it. That was our language. One time, at a friend's birthday, I got overwhelmed. It was loud and bright, and everyone kept talking over each other. I slipped into the hallway and stared at a framed print I didn't care about. He didn't make it a scene. He just found me, stood beside me, and said quietly, "Wanna go soon?" Not what's wrong, not you're being weird, just a door opening. When we got back to his place, he didn't try to fix anything. He took off my shoes for me, like it was normal, and then he leaned his forehead against my shoulder and exhaled. I felt needed in a way that wasn't heavy.
That's the kind of intimacy people don't post. Not declarations, not grand gestures, just a steady, accurate presence. And when you've been unseen before, that accuracy feels like love itself.
The shift didn't start with coldness. It started with a new kind of quiet. At first, it was almost invisible. He'd take longer to respond to texts, but when he did, it was still sweet, just shorter. He used to send me the middle of his day, complaints about a meeting, a line from a song stuck in his head. Then it became logistics. What time are you coming? Do you want me to grab anything? Parking's bad, might be late. When I'd ask, how are you, really? He'd smile like I'd handed him something fragile. I'm good, just tired. And I believed him because it sounded reasonable. Everyone's tired. The world is heavy. People go through weeks like weather. But there were moments, tiny, almost embarrassing to mention, that stayed with me. Like how he started putting his phone face down on the table. Not dramatically, just face down. Like he didn't want the screen lighting his eyes in front of me. Like how he stopped telling me stories unprompted. I'd ask about his day, and he'd give me the headline. No details, no side characters, no little impressions. And at night, when we lay in bed, he used to reach for me in his sleep. I'd wake up with his arm across my waist, his hand on my stomach like a promise. Then one week I noticed there was always a small space between us, just enough for air to move through, just enough that I started waking up cold.
People think leaving looks like anger. Sometimes it looks like conservation, like someone trying not to spend what they don't think they can replace. Attention becomes rationed, warmth becomes scheduled, and the person still there, still loving, starts doing math in their head they never wanted to learn.
I tried to meet him where he was. I lowered my volume. I asked fewer questions. I became easier to be with, the way you do when you sense you're becoming inconvenient. There was a night we were making dinner, nothing special, just pasta, and I reached for the salt at the same time he did. Our hands touched. I laughed without thinking. It was such a normal moment. For a second, I felt us again. He didn't laugh back. He didn't pull away either. He just paused, like he was waiting for the correct response to load. Then he said, "Sorry," softly, like he'd bumped into a stranger. I stood there with the salt in my hand, the stove light turning everything orange, and I told myself it was nothing. Just a weird moment. Just a long day. But my body didn't believe my explanations. My body kept a record.
The body notices what the mind negotiates with. It notices timing. It notices hesitation. It notices when someone's affection starts requiring intention instead of instinct. And once you feel that change, you start living in anticipation, watching for the next subtraction.
Later, on a Sunday, we were walking back from a small cafe. The air was sharp and clean, the kind that makes your nose sting. He was holding a paper cup, steam rising, and he was talking about something, work, maybe, and I realized I was staring at his mouth the way you do when you're trying to catch words that are already fading. I reached for his hand. He gave it to me. He didn't squeeze. We kept walking, and it hit me, this strange, quiet fear that I could keep holding on to him like this for months, maybe longer, and no one would be able to tell me the exact day I lost him, not even me. The realization didn't come with a breakup line. It came on a night that looked almost like us. It was late, one of those weekdays that feels like it should already be Friday. His place was dim except for the kitchen light over the sink, cool white, too honest. I was sitting at the counter, legs tucked under me, watching him rinse a plate that didn't need rinsing. He kept rinsing it anyway. I said, "Do you want to plan something for next month?" Not a big trip, just something with a date on it. Something that proved we still had a later. He didn't answer right away. Water ran. The plate turned in his hands. His jaw flexed like he was trying to swallow a thought without tasting it. "Next month's weird," he said finally. I might be slammed. I nodded too fast. "Okay, maybe just a weekend. We can keep it loose." He shut the water off and dried his hands slowly, like he'd learned speed was a kind of commitment. Then he said, quietly, "Yeah, we'll see." That was it. 3 words. But something in me went still, because "we'll see" used to mean "we'll figure it out together." That night it sounded like "I'm not going to promise you I'll be here."
There's a particular kind of sentence that ends things without ending them. Not because it's cruel, because it's vague. Vague language is often an attempt to keep peace and keep options at the same time. The person saying it might not even know which part they're protecting more, the relationship or their ability to leave it.
After that, I started noticing the future the way you notice a missing tooth with your tongue. He talked about things coming up, work deadlines, a friend visiting, an idea he had about moving apartments eventually, and I realized I wasn't inside those sentences anymore. Not excluded on purpose, just not included naturally. He'd say, "I might look at a place closer to the train," and I'd wait for the part where he'd add, "for us," or "if you want," or even "what do you think?" But he didn't. It wasn't that he was hiding plans. It was worse than that. It was that he didn't remember to make room for me in them. I tried to be normal about it. I told myself he's stressed, he's tired, he's in his head, and I became very good at not taking up space in his. One night, he fell asleep before me, facing away. I watched the shape of his back in the dark, the rise and fall. There was a quiet comfort in how familiar his breathing was. And then I had this thought, clear, almost unemotional. If I got up right now, got dressed, and left, he wouldn't wake up. Not because he didn't care, because his body wasn't expecting me anymore. I stayed in bed anyway. I lay there and listened to the refrigerator click on and off, and I felt something simple and awful. I had become optional.
When someone is slowly leaving, they don't always feel like they're choosing to go. They start living as if the relationship is already in a different category. Something comforting, something familiar, but not something that defines them. And the other person feels it as a demotion, not from lover to stranger, from priority to background.
A few days later, we were in the grocery store. Fluorescent lights, cold air, the kind of place where everyone looks a little tired. He pushed the cart with one hand, phone in the other. His thumb moved in that focused way, like he was solving a problem. I picked up a cereal I liked, something I'd been buying since I was a kid, and I held it up like a small offering. "Should we get this?" He glanced at it for half a second. "Sure." Not, "Yeah, you love that." Not, "Is it the one with the weird little squares?" Not even a smile. Just permission. We moved down the aisle and I realized I couldn't remember the last time he'd looked at me and seemed present, like his eyes were actually landing. At the checkout, the cashier asked, "Together or separate?" It was a normal question. It shouldn't have mattered, but he hesitated just a fraction and said separate. He didn't even look at me when he said it, like it was an automatic choice, not a statement. I laughed lightly, because what else do you do with a sentence that suddenly makes you feel disposable? Oh, okay. He glanced up then. Quick, I'll Venmo you for yours. It's easier. Easier. That word stayed in my mouth like something dry. Outside, the air was damp and dark. He opened his trunk, and I watched him place his bag on one side like he was organizing a life. We drove back in silence, streetlights coming and going across his face. And I had another thought, even quieter than the first. He's already practicing being alone.
It's rarely about money. It's about separation becoming the default. The mind starts creating boundaries before the heart admits why. Separate bills, separate plans, separate inner worlds. Not hostile, just partitioned. A way of making the eventual loss feel less like an amputation and more like an adjustment.
I didn't confront him. I didn't announce my fear. I did what a lot of people do when they can feel love thinning. I tried to earn it back without asking for it. I cleaned his apartment while he showered. I bought his favorite tea. I laughed at things that weren't that funny. I touched his arm in passing, like I could remind him with my fingertips. He was kind. That was the confusing part. He wasn't mean. He didn't snap. He didn't cheat. He didn't turn into someone else. He just stopped reaching. Sometimes he'd kiss my forehead like a habit. Sometimes he'd say, "Miss you," in a text that sounded copied from an older version of us. The tenderness was still there, but it had the feeling of a lamp left on in an empty room. One night, we were sitting on his couch. A show played, but neither of us was watching. The only light was the TV, blue and flickering, making our faces look distant even though we were inches apart. I leaned my head on his shoulder. He didn't move away. He also didn't lean in. After a while, I said, barely above the volume of the show, "Are we okay?" He exhaled. It wasn't a sigh of annoyance. It was a sigh of someone who'd been carrying a sentence for a long time. "Yeah," he said. Then, softer, like he was trying to make it true by saying it carefully, "I think so." I waited for more. A hand on my knee, a question back. Anything with weight. Instead, he added, my head's been full. It wasn't a lie. It also wasn't an answer. I nodded, because nodding was easier than admitting I was starting to feel like a guest. And then he did something small that cracked me open. He reached for the remote and turned the volume up. Not a lot, just enough to fill the space where my question had been.
That's how avoidance looks when it isn't dramatic. It's not shutting a door. It's turning up the noise. It's choosing a distraction over an emotional moment. Not because the person doesn't care, but because they don't know how to stay without promising something they can't deliver. Sometimes people keep loving you and still can't meet you. Those two truths can exist in the same room.
I started to remember earlier versions of him the way you remember a place you can't go back to. The way he used to text me when he got home, safe. The way he used to ask, "Did you eat?" like it mattered. The way he'd point out a dog on the street and whisper, "Look at his little face," like the world was still soft to him. Now, when we were together, he looked like he was thinking about leaving even while sitting still. I don't know how to explain it without making him sound cold. He wasn't cold. He was somewhere else. Like he'd started a private life in his head, and I wasn't invited, not out of cruelty, but out of habit. The next morning, I woke up before him. The room was gray with early light. His blinds always let in thin stripes, like the sun was trying not to bother us. I watched his face while he slept. There was a calm there I hadn't seen in weeks. For a moment, I wanted to wake him gently and ask him to come back to me, but I didn't, because I realized something that felt almost like respect. He was resting from being with me, and once you can feel that your presence costs someone something, you start shrinking without meaning to. I got up quietly. I made coffee. I stood at the window holding the warm mug, looking down at the street, and in that quiet, the realization finally settled into place. He wasn't going to leave in one day. He was going to leave in 100 small days, and I was going to help him by being understanding, by being patient, by being easy to lose.
That's the most painful part of slow endings. The person staying becomes complicit, not because they're weak, but because hope makes people polite. Hope makes you interpret crumbs as patterns. It makes you accept later as a love language. And the person drifting often isn't trying to harm you. They're trying to avoid being the kind of person who harms you. So they reduce contact, reduce intensity, reduce truth, until the relationship becomes survivable without them. Not a betrayal, a retreat.
A week after that morning, I brought an overnight bag and didn't unpack it. It sat by his dresser like a question neither of us wanted to read out loud. He noticed it. His eyes flicked to it once, then away, like acknowledging it would make it real. We moved through the evening gently. He asked if I was hungry. I said not really. We ate anyway. The forks made small sounds against the plates that felt louder than the conversation. At some point, he stood behind me while I rinsed a glass, resting his hand on my waist for maybe 2 seconds. The touch was careful, almost formal. Then he stepped away to check something on his phone. I stared at the glass in my hands like it had instructions on it. Later, in bed, he scrolled for a while, screen light washing his face pale. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ask another question that would get parked in a different room. He put the phone down eventually and turned off the lamp. The darkness settled. In the quiet, I whispered, "Do you still feel here with me?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear him breathe in through his nose, slow, like he was choosing the safest door. "I care about you," he said finally. It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't what I asked. I turned toward him, trying to see his outline. "That's not what I said." "I know." His voice was soft, almost apologetic. I don't want to hurt you." I held my breath because that sentence always means the hurting is already happening. It's just not being named. He reached for my hand under the blanket, laced his fingers with mine, and stayed like that. He didn't pull me closer. He didn't let go. We fell asleep holding hands like two people trying to keep something from floating away.
When someone is slowly leaving, they often replace presence with proof. I'm holding your hand. I'm still here tonight. I'm not being cruel. Because proof feels manageable. Presence costs more. There are people who can't say, "I don't feel the same," without feeling like a villain. So they try to exit in a way that preserves their image of themselves and sometimes your image of them too. "I don't want to hurt you" can be true. Can also be the way someone admits they don't know how to stay. Not everyone leaves because they found someone else. Some people leave because closeness starts to feel like a job they're failing at. Because being needed makes them panic. Because they're tired and they confuse tiredness with falling out of love. Because the relationship asks for a version of them they can't keep performing. And instead of saying, "I'm not able," they say, "I'm busy." Instead of saying, "I'm drifting," they say, "I'm tired." Instead of saying, "I can't picture a future," they say, "We'll see." No villain. Just a person taking small steps away from a life they're afraid they can't live well.
After that night, I stopped asking questions. Not as punishment, more like I ran out of ways to ask without feeling like I was begging for basic human presence. I still came over, but less. I blamed traffic, work, a headache, things that sounded mature. He didn't argue with my excuses. He accepted them with the relief of someone who didn't want to be the one to pull away first. When we did see each other, he was gentle. He'd kiss me hello. He'd ask if I wanted tea. He'd put on a show and let it play. We existed beside each other like furniture that matched. Sometimes he'd look at me with something like sadness, quick, almost hidden, and I'd feel my chest tighten because it looked like he missed me too. And then he'd glance away, and whatever was in his eyes would close. There was a night I left early and he walked me to my car. The hallway outside his apartment smelled like someone's curry and old carpet. The yellow light above the stairwell made him look younger, like the beginning of us. He handed me my sweater and said, "Text me when you get home." I waited for something else. Stay. Come back tomorrow. I've been feeling off. Anything that would turn us toward each other instead of parallel. But he just stood there with his hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly forward, like he was bracing for weather. I said, "Okay." He leaned in and hugged me tight, quick, efficient. The kind of hug that ends before it becomes a conversation. "Drive safe," he whispered. I nodded, and my throat burned in that restrained way it does when you refuse to cry in front of someone who's already halfway gone. In the car, I sat with my keys in my hand and didn't start the engine for a long time, because it hit me that this might be what our ending looked like. Small goodbyes that didn't know they were final.
Some relationships end like a sentence that never gets punctuation. Not because the love was fake, because both people are avoiding something different. One person avoids being abandoned, so they become easier to keep. The other avoids being the abandoner, so they stay physically present while emotionally packing. It becomes a quiet negotiation. You don't ask for too much. They don't admit they can't give it. And the cost is that nothing is spoken clearly enough to mourn properly.
The last time I was at his place, it wasn't planned as the last time. It was a quick stop. I had his hoodie, navy, worn at the cuffs, and a book I'd borrowed months ago that I never finished because the margins still had his pencil marks in it. His apartment looked the same. Same gray couch. Same floor lamp with that warm bulb that used to make everything feel possible. The air smelled like detergent and something citrusy he'd started using, like he'd tried to change the atmosphere without changing the truth. He opened the door and smiled, polite and familiar. "Hey," he said. "Hey." I held the hoodie out like an offering, like an excuse to touch his hands. He took it, nodded. "Thanks." Inside, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it and then at me, like he was deciding which life needed him more in that moment. I said, "You can answer." He hesitated. "It's nothing," but he picked it up anyway. I watched him read, thumb hovering, and I realized I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was tired in a new way, tired of translating, tired of waiting for affection to return like a delayed flight. When he put the phone down, he said, "Sorry." "It's fine," I replied, and it was. We stood there for a second, two people in a familiar room with no script left. He looked at me like he was searching for the correct face to make. "You okay?" I could have said no. I could have said, "I miss you while you're still here." I could have said, "Please stop holding me like you're afraid of what I'll ask for." Instead, I said, "Yeah, I'm okay," because I finally understood something. If I told the full truth, it wouldn't bring him back. It would only make him feel guilty for leaving the way he already was. He walked me to the door. The hallway light buzzed faintly. He leaned in like he might kiss me, then stopped halfway and settled for my forehead. It felt like being blessed and dismissed at the same time. "Let me know you got home," he said again. I nodded, and then I left. No fight, no dramatic line, just a door closing softly behind me. That night, I did text him, "Home." He reacted with a heart. I stared at the little red icon until the screen dimmed. Then I opened our shared notes app, our movie list still there, still titled like a promise, and I scrolled through it like it was evidence of a person who used to want a future with me. I didn't delete it. I didn't add anything either. I just let it sit there unfinished. Because some endings don't feel like loss right away. They feel like a room getting colder so gradually you only notice when you can't feel your hands.